Oh, hey, we're live. You know, it's we have these new lights in the studio, so I can't see signals. And again, we're live, so I probably shouldn't be saying all this. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Google Developers Live, an app script. My name's Ikai Lan.
Arun Nagarajan here.
And we are here to hold office hours. So Arun's been up to, Arun and Kalyan, who you can't see is off screen right now, they've been working on some cool stuff that they want to demo.
Well, we're not going to show it right away, but we'll announce it, pre-announce it, I guess.
Not showing it. Oh.
We're gonna put out an official blog post and launch it that way. That way, you can actually, get our official stance out there. But we'll kind of pre-announce it for the folks that tune in, the loyal guys that listen and girls that listen in. We've been actually working on a sample app that we're going to put out very soon. It's around the election. So obviously, we have a week and a half to go till the election, so kind of a timely, interesting application. And the idea is that we're going to be using the Google Civic API, which lists your polling place based on where you're registered to vote. And it'll show it in a map and allow you to create a calendar event and other things that we'll kind of walk through. But the basic idea is to build a full-featured sample web application built on top of Google Apps Script. And a developer relations, we're developers ourselves, and the point is for us to go through the exercise that you go through. It's got a lot of good value, and then ultimately we'll release the source code as well for you guys to take and really tweak it and add more features and capabilities to it.
And I know that excuse me. I know that you guys are planning on working on a series of blog posts describing, how it was done. But what are some of the different services? Like I've seen some stuff. It's looking pretty good. It's a web UI, and there's some cool stuff going on. It integrates with your Google accounts. What are some of the different services you're using to build this?
Yeah. So first and foremost, it's an HTML service application that uses jQuery pretty extensively to do both AJAX calls to the JSON service, and also to build a fairly decent-looking UI, I would say, clean and concise, but crisp as well. And so that's sort of the interface aspect of it. HTML service serving up a jQuery, which does some bunch of stuff on the client side as well. But behind the scenes, we're using the map service to get a static map of where the polling location is. We're using user properties to store things about the user in their secure location, so that when they come back the next time, we remember their address. We're using the document app to create a document with driving direction to where the polling place is. We're using the calendar app to create an event with a reminder and the location in there, so you can get a reminder the day before the election to go vote and where you go vote. And we also give you the ability to send yourself an email with details on where you got to go vote. So those are some of the services we're using. Let me see if I'm forgetting anything.
So it's like you guys are using every single API. Now you just have to figure out how to cram in URL shortener,
yes.
Google Tasks, and BigQuery.
Yes.
Oh my goodness,
yes.
BigQuery. So if you haven't seen our office hours, we did a BigQuery office hour live session on Tuesday, and there's a video. So BigQuery is a tool that allows you to do data analysis on very large data sets. So I get emails sometimes where people say, hey, I've got a spreadsheet, it's got 50,000 rows, it's very large. Now, that is very large by a lot of, I certainly couldn't do it by hand, but when we're talking about BigQuery, we're talking about, let's say you've got a data set that's, terabytes of data, or even a couple hundred gigabytes of data. It's pretty large. You could put that in the spreadsheet. I actually don't know if you could. I think the answer is no. You can't put a couple hundred terabytes.
Try,
yeah. Your copy-paste buffer's not that big. But if you wanted to write scripts and build a UI for your big data, that's certainly something worth looking into. So check us out at developers.google.com/live. And I'm sorry, go to YouTube. Go to our YouTube channel, because we've recorded it at youtube.com/Google Developers.
That's right.
And just scroll down a little bit. Unfortunately, YouTube always picks like the worst preview image. So they've got a picture of me going like this, and it's like a DMV photo. So definitely check that out.
There's got to be a way to change that, no?
There is, but I don't have admin access.
That's good enough.
I never have admin access to anything. People just keep taking away my privileges around here. And for good reason, very good reason. So I want to talk about this app, this currently unnamed app, because you guys should all keep a lookout for it on the blog.
That's
we have
right.
a blog post going out very soon. That's at, I think it's googleappsdeveloper.blogspot.com. And if you're ever not sure how to get to our blog, just go to your favorite search engine and type in Google Apps Developer blog. I don't know that that's actually easier to remember.
Yeah, Google Apps, which is what we represent.
Which is what we do.
Developers, which is what you guys are. And blog, which is what we're talking about.
Which is what the stuff is going on. So that's announcement number 2. And the third announcement is that we still have spots in our Los Angeles hackathon. I know that a lot of people don't like to sign up for things way in advance. I know I have a friend who goes, "Hey, are you free? In February for lunch?" And I'm like, What is this? I don't even. No, he's visiting from some city or other. So that's coming up November 13th. So we still have spots. I know it's still kind of early, so we'll be periodically reminding you. I'll be there. Arun's going to be there. Colleen's going to be there. And when you guys see this election app they're working on, you're going to want to be there because you want to bug them about it. I'm sure you guys love hearing about it. No, you guys haven't even started talking about it yet.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's a pre-announcement.
Yeah.
So check it out, and we're going to actually release it through the Chrome Web Store. So we'll kind of talk through the process for releasing your apps, web apps, through the Chrome Web Store as well. So this blog post will cover a lot of the mechanics. Obviously, we ran into some interesting problems ourselves, which we'll bug our engineers about, and hopefully it'll improve the whole product and affect the whole community in a positive way. So there's a lot of good reasons why we do it, and if you have ideas for other sample apps, sort of this extensive sample apps that you want us to work on, shoot us an idea, and maybe we'll talk about it during office hours and see what the interest level is. And we'll love to do one a quarter, a few a year to keep the product moving forward, and also to give you guys more sample code to work with.
Right. And you guys, I think you guys are planning on doing a special live show about this application, how it's built. It's going to be a very technical deep dive. It's not scheduled yet, and I'm sorry about that. We're still looking for a slot. But if you just keep looking at developers.google.com/live, we will post when that's going on. And don't worry if you miss it, because we do record every single one of our shows. So that'll be up. These next few months, you're going to be seeing a lot of these, what I call special shows. We're going to have one of these, and we're going to have a few other interesting shows. But if you guys have any ideas for shows you want to see, let us know. I had one idea, and I don't know how it's going to go. It's the Reading Rainbow idea. I think I'm the only one that's on board, where we talk about some of the books we like. I don't know. Let's just try it. I mean, what's the harm?
Yeah. Well, in all seriousness, we're going to show the code. We're going to walk down the structure of the code. Obviously, it's a sample app, and it's not going to do everything the API can do. But take a look through, submit your questions, and we'll actually maybe even do some live coding of new capabilities, depending on how things go. So, we have a lot coming up on that. What we're calling topical GDLs?
Topical. I don't think we should use that as our topical. Sounds like something you put on your skin. So we'll come up with a better name.
Yes.
I call them special editions.
Special editions, where we actually show code and walk through the layout and what process we went through, and workarounds that sometimes you have to end up using. All sorts of details about the code itself, so that it's not just a Q&A, but you can actually watch and learn and replay it, and use it as a resource.
So I'm looking at the Q&A, and I realized I didn't post a link to the Q&A this time. So we're going to have to remedy that for the next office hours. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and skip to the live Hangout and see if there's anyone on. Can you see that? It's like, all right, I'm just making sure you have a line of sight. It looks like you're like obstructing.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I have to look away for a second for the video. Is that Bill? Is that right?
I see Bill.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
me.
Bill, how are you? Good morning.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
I was waiting for today because we've got a pretty long string of without release notes, so I'm expecting something really big coming out any day now.
Oh, they're on
Not
to
this
us.
show?
Yes, Bill is.
No, nothing super big. But you're right. We haven't done any releases in the last few weeks. I'm not sure when the next release is.
It's imminent.
Is it tonight? Next Thursday? I don't know if there's anything that's what we call user facing. I mean, we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes to make sure stuff's always working better. But no release notes today. Not yet.
But do stay tuned for next week.
Okay, because I would look back, and it's been a long time since we've gone this long without release, some release notes of some sort.
He's
thinking,
right.
there's something.
No, it's something that so just to give you a sense for as Ikai said for the release notes. So there are features and fixes and improvements that are going through weekly probably, but we kind of cull through the list of things that are changing, ensure that they're working the way we want them to, ensure that they make sense for us to document and highlight to our users, and those are the ones that make the actual release notes webpage. It's not a one-to-one correspondence to the actual improvements and fixes that you may see. There are certain things that are internal upkeep that we need to keep doing and ensure that the system's running smoothly, obviously. So, hopefully the next one will be a bit longer than the ones before.
I hope so. Yeah, I know when we're going through release notes, sometimes we're like, "What is this? Yeah. I don't even know what this is."
Yeah. So if we don't know what some fix is, we probably won't write about it. So that's one of the reasons as well. As you can imagine, there was a backlog of housekeeping things that we had to go through.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I do have one question today, and it's about ScriptDB.
Yes.
Ikai, I mentioned last time about that I have a little experiment running to see
yeah,
how many.
I was waiting for your email and I never got it. Sad.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Like the release notes, you got to wait for the.
Yes. It goes both ways.
One of the things, one of the things that have come up. My impression was the count method should return more the number of objects that are in there, but it's been a little erratic, and most frequently it returns a number somewhere around 50,000, not necessarily right on. So I was wondering, does the number of objects returned, because I know there's a hard limit of 50,000 objects for queries, but my assumption was the count method would return the number of objects independent. It would stop at 50,000. 2,000 objects. Can you comment on that? Do you do anything specific about the count method?
Well, I know a few things about the count method. So to describe a little about how ScriptDb works under the hood, like I'm fascinated by data stores for some reason. What happens is, I've been monitoring the ScriptDB issues that people have been reporting, and there's some pretty interesting ones out there that they were trying to get to, the Eng team has been trying to get to the bottom of. And so if you think of a data store like this, you've got the object stored somewhere, and this would be like a storage unit, right, or like a library shelf. Right, you have a library shelf, and we've also got an index, and in the index would be something like a catalog inside a library. We would say, where is this book? When you do a query, you're hitting the index, and you're going through these things, and then you're going to the library to actually fetch the book and fetch the data. So that's what's happening when you do a ScriptDB query. Is you're going through this index first. You're going to this catalog. I don't even know if they still have these anymore. Libraries. I know that when I was a kid.
The Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
Yes,
they still have the
absolutely.
Dewey Decimal System. I don't know if they have the little cards that you have to flip through.
Probably.
So what's happening when you do a query is you're going to these cards, you're flipping through them, you're finding all the things you want, you're pulling out these cards, and then you're going and you're individually fetching these items back. So there are a lot of count query. My understanding of how count query works is that it's going through this index, and you're just counting the number of cards. Now, one of the issues with that is that there's no way to kind of, in a distributed system, it's very difficult to do it cheaply where you have the index synced up with the thing perfectly. I mean, we do our best, and in most cases, we've got our bases covered. But what does happen from time to time, and I've seen it reported, the symptoms is reported on the issues tracker, is that you'll do a query on something, you'll say, hey, I've got 5 results, and you'll go to the data store and try to pull back those 5, but you won't be able to pull them back because they've been deleted or updated, or the index is no longer valid. Now, this is a problem, and we're working hard to try to fix this. And it's my understanding that count, first off, works on the index. So count is not, if we're having inconsistency bugs with the index and the actual data store, count is not going to be exactly accurate, and we're working on resolving these when we can.
And it's also, I think, larger the database, the more likelihood the count is slightly off because the data is sharded, right?
It's likely from a probability standpoint, in that, let's say there's a 1% chance. There's not a 1% chance. It's much smaller than that. But just because it's so large, the chances that you're going to be off, but it should be very, very small, the order of single digits. And I'm not saying that, for the most part, if you're doing stuff on the order of single digits and you're doing these large count operations, it's fine, right? Like for all practical purposes. I understand why you want an exact count in a lot of cases. So the issue with the index is that there are two things. I'm not really answering your question. It's a really roundabout way of doing this. One is that first we need to figure out how count works. If count does return the number of objects in the query, because we don't keep a running count, especially of a query, because we can't know ahead of time all the different queries you're going to do. Like, you might say, give me everyone whose first name is Arun. And I might say, give me all the people that have a favorite color of red.
Right.
And I can't know ahead of time to index these. If I index them ahead of time, quote unquote, to keep a running count, I knew you were always going to execute this. Every time someone adds a new ScriptDb item where there's a person's name is Arun, I increment. And whenever you change it, if someone deletes an item, I decrement that number. And that way I can return that count to you in what we call a constant time operation, in that it just happens immediately, right? There's only one thing that happens. Now, when you have to go through indexes and do counts, we have to traverse through each one of the index items one by one. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, it's very, very fast because it's an index, but there's still a traversal happening. There are ways to get this down, but not as fast as what we call this constant count. So what I suspect might be happening is, I wonder if the count, when it goes to these 50,000 things, it's hitting some kind of time limit or limit. There are two things that are possibly happening. One is that we're doing a full query, or at least we're doing the index query. The index knows to stop at 50,000 or whatever the number is, and we're returning that number to you. Or the second is that we're hitting some time limit and returning that to you. And I don't know what the behavior is off the top of my head, but hopefully there's a little bit of insight there as to how count works. Now, the flip side of this is that if you were doing an optimization, like if you know that Arun constantly queries for his name, it is a good practice to keep a running count. And some people, they call this a counter cache, right? Now, again, when you do something like a counter cache, you have this problem where it might get out of sync, and he might be off by one. Again, it's like we're just solving the same problems over and over and over again. So I know that you're not using this for this purpose. I know that you're using it to do some benchmarking. So this may or may not be a helpful answer. I mean, hopefully it may explain some of the issues you'll see kind of at a larger scale when you do notice that 1 or 2 items go missing, because it's fairly unlikely that when you're working with ScriptDB of a couple hundred objects that anything will go missing. But when you're working with 50,000, if you're keeping track of them and you notice an inconsistency. Now, again, when I say go missing, I'm not saying the data is deleted. It's there. I'm saying that it's not updating the index. You might see issues like that.
Well, to give you an idea, right now I just ran my counter, and the count returns 56,691. I did exactly what you said, was I tracked the number that I was stuffing into it. According to my script, I've stuffed 157,000 into it. So I haven't verified. Maybe I've got a problem. Maybe it a couple of times, because I know the script stopped a couple of times due to a timeout. So maybe it recorded some that didn't actually go in. So I haven't actually verified that there's in fact 56,691 objects in there, or the 157,900 objects. But what I do know is that there's probably more than 56,000 in there. And the last time I ran this, since it's been sitting there, it was a different number, and it returned me on the count, I think, 100,000 one time. So
and
I'm
how
not
many
sure.
did you say you think you inserted?
Up to 57,000.
Okay.
But what I'll do, because rather than, I wouldn't actually ask, I would have put it on Tracker or something. I was looking for some insight, which Ikai, you just gave me. So I think I need to build a script to actually count them, pull them out in small batches and actually count them, so I know how many that are actually in there, and compare that to what count's returning. And the fact that you've told me that count isn't really a count, it's a go and look and see what the index is telling me. That's useful to me.
Now the index,
so I can.
Don't get me wrong, the index should be completely synced up with the data.
And you know what, it may be, but it my first gut tells me that it's not giving me, well, and it's giving me different numbers. So let me go and look at it a little bit more. Continue with I'm learning some stuff from this, so I'll report back on what I find.
And Bill, the end goal of this is for you to understand what the limits are, and also from a record count and a size standpoint, correct? From a byte size standpoint?
Yeah, my goal of the experiment was to know, so when I'm building an application for a customer, that they tell me their data set is X number of records, I can say to them, well, we can use spreadsheet, or we can use ScriptDB, or we're going to have to put it in some other database outside of AppScript. So it's just an idea that so I have a sense of, right now 200 megabytes or 100 megabytes doesn't really tell me anything about how much data I can really stuff into it.
Right now we talk about it in terms of bytes, and you want to know in terms of records.
Yeah. And maybe it's just, and I don't know, those bytes, are those bytes of information, or are they, I assume there's some metadata.
Yeah, there's probably
about
some
the
kind
objects
of
and
overhead.
stuff. So that's what I'm just trying to get a sense of. And it's fun playing with ScriptDB too. So
there's a serialization method we use here at Google called protocol buffers, and you think of something like JSON, except make them type safe, and you need to have a definition. It's sort of type safe. That's what a protocol buffer is. So sometimes it's not always obvious how much space you're taking up. So what you're doing is a very good experiment. For instance, someone might say a size limit on, it's hard. We don't always publish size limits because we need to figure out what it means. For instance, if we have an RPC limit that's, say, 10 megabytes for a given RPC, I mean, the right way for us to implement something is to batch a really big RPC, a 50 megabyte thing. We break them into 5 chunks. But what we need to do is, there is that overhead of taking whatever data you are, wrapping inside this protocol buffer, and sending it over to wire. And I have to figure out what the actual persistence mechanism. But you're right, it's not an absolute one-to-one correspondence, as in my JSON object is this long as a string. It's like this long as protocol buffer. And protocol buffers can also be compressed, which makes it even more confusing. But on the note that you're bringing up something that's very important, which is, how do we do counting? And this is something that has been brought up over and over. So in a SQL database, people tend to be kind of, I don't want to call them spoiled, but SQL is powerful. I mean, SQL, you can say select, count, star, and you'll get back an accurate count. And that's because it's effectively, scanning the indexes and it's going row by row. And it's single-homed, so you don't tend to have these problems of how going out to multiple systems and trying to get back a count. So with SQL, you have now, I don't want to go too much into SQL internals. That's not fun. But I was going to say, basically, it's the same thing. We have to go row by row by row, especially if you've got like a complicated query that you want to do a count on. So something that people often ask me is, what's a good, fast way to do counts? And one way to do counts is what we talked about, where you keep a running count. But this tends to only be useful if you know ahead of time, a priori, what you're going to be counting. Total items, or items that have a certain very popular criteria. Now, one thing that's really interesting is a pattern is if you have tons of data and you don't know how to do what we call approximate counts. So a good example of this in action is, say, Gmail. In Gmail, let's say you do a search on my name in your Gmail. You'll see something like 1 to 25 out of thousands, right? You notice that there's not an exact number, and for good reason, right? Because the chance that you'll go all the way back is low, so why should we spend the computational effort to actually count everything? So one technique that's commonly used, I don't know if this is what they use in Gmail, but I've seen used, is what's called sampling. So when you have something like Gmail, a good example is you say, how many emails do I have from Ikai? Well, we'll take the first, say 2,000 emails, and you'll see that, all right, per 2,000 emails, I have maybe 50 emails from Ikai, right? And therefore, if I can assume a even distribution all the way back to the end of time, I know that I keep a running count of how many email messages I have, which is 100,000. If I have 50, well, I'll take 2,000, 100,000 divided by 2,000, and now my math is going to break down. But that number, and it's a sampling, so it's kind of like election polling,
right?
And that's one way of assuming. But we can't, we don't give you the exact number, and that's one strategy when it comes to counting, because ultimately the question you have to ask yourself is, why am I counting this? Do you care if it's 640? Do you care if it's 720?
Especially in a ScriptDB where the data is not necessarily homogeneous, right? So you may have 5 chairs and 3 emails and 5 books. So the count of objects sometimes takes a lot longer to sync up because it's not as valuable, like you said.
Right. And again, approximation tends to be more important to people than the actual. But that's why it's also horribly wrong.
But in case of this experiment, the count is very interesting.
This is, we need to figure out why it's stopping. I mean, just out of curiosity, Bill, how are you recording the count of objects that you insert?
Well, after I do the, so I just got it open here. So I go through, I create batches, and then stuff those batches, and then after those batches are stuffed and I get an all okay back, I record that in a script property. Just increment the script
in a script property. Okay. Okay, I see. So one thing I wanted to look out for, and this isn't something that would inflate the number. This is something that would deflate the number. There's some like window and window stuff going on here. Deflating the number is if you write the ScriptDb twice in a quick succession, because you can use lock service to lock it. I suppose that would work, especially since you're not doing very, very fast writes. But what that would do is that you would end up what I call losing writes, as in if you say that you've recorded 150,000 items, your number is probably 155,000 or something higher than 150,000, which still doesn't really explain the discrepancy between what you're seeing of 150,000 and say 50,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I will. I'll play with this a little bit more, and then when I've got a better idea, let you know what I find.
Yeah, I'm gonna make Arun my secretary and make him remind me when we get back to our desk to figure out how this count stuff works, because I think you know, it's important that we create abstractions that make it so you don't have to understand how this works. I mean, it should just work for you, but sometimes, you know, when you get to be an advanced user, it is important to understand how things work.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially when you're in this decision-making process.
Yeah, and it really just goes back to and back to your approximation versus exact. The reason I'm doing exact is just to kind of find where the limits are.
Yeah.
But really, what I'm looking for is an approximation. If someone gives me an idea of what the data set is, I approximately know that that's not going to fit, or it's going to fit. You know, it only needs to be, it's an order of magnitude, you know, like, well, maybe
right.
like
not an order of magnitude, you're relatively close.
Not an order, no, that's a little off, but I mean,
yeah.
You know, if I determine it can hold 1 million objects of this size, and they tell me they have 200,000 of really big objects, I know I might be in trouble.
Right.
So, you know, it just, that's all I'm looking for, is to get a sense of what do the size quotas mean, because I'd hate to get to the point where I got an application and I roll it out, and you know, in the first week we hit the cap and have to rethink everything. So it's just to get a sense.
Per user or per script, or per script author, or per script?
This is a question that we have to answer, because it's some things are for the script author and some things are per user.
But they're never per script.
Wait, let me think about this for a second.
I believe ScriptDb is per script.
Per script.
Right.
So you could theoretically create multiple libraries and But that's not.
I need to draw the diagram of this, because there's some holes in my own knowledge, and this will force me to really understand this thing.
And then force us to fix it.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Arun hasn't taken a shot at me yet about putting together that script.
No.
I was waiting for it. It's coming. It's just gonna. Anyway, I'm really sorry to cut you off, Bill. We're running out of time.
You're not. We're done. Good.
No, this is a great question and great reminder for us to really investigate this. And it's not going to be an immediate thing, but hopefully we'll get the information that we need to at least sanity check our documentation, improve it where necessary, and then hopefully also generally clean up the quota
That's all good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank
you, Bill. All right, and thank you everyone for watching. This video will be posted again on youtube.com/Google Developers, since we actually went in, we had talked about some cool stuff today.
That's right, yeah.
So
and then stay tuned for the election app.
Stay tuned, watch out for a blog post, all right? Thank you all very much. This is Ikai Land signing off.
Arun Nagarajan here.